Hi, I'm Katherine Okpara, UX researcher for the Create stage of GitLab. And today I'd like to talk to you about one of our System Usability Scale themes, navigation and discoverability. So the key issue that we've discovered through collecting feedback through the SUS survey is that users experience difficulty in remembering where the items they need are located in GitLab. So we constantly hear feedback from users that express trouble with maintaining context, understanding where you are in the instance, getting back to the place you last were, and navigating throughout GitLab using the various menus, breadcrumbs, and landing pages. Some of the top areas that users tend to mention include the left side navigation. That would be the sidebar found in projects and groups. The top navigation, the project and group and user profile settings, search, and also the board and list view. The first area that we'll talk about are the various settings pages in GitLab. So when describing issues with navigation, the layout of the settings pages often came up as a point for feedback in the surveys. The main areas of friction were the expanding and collapsing sections on the pages and the levels of navigation needed to reach certain settings. Let's take a look at a few examples of the anatomy of the project settings page to consider the feedback in context. So if I scroll down to in the left side navigation to the settings area of the project, what you'll find is that this navigation menu item will expand into various categories of settings that users can click into to find a setting relevant to the task they're trying to complete. So I'll just take you through an overview of how settings are laid out. So each setting page, when you click into it, you'll see an overview of the types of settings listed under each section, and each section has a heading that categorizes what you'll be able to find. And every setting is able to be collapsed or expanded. The reason why this was an issue and a point of frustration for users was the fact that it required users to click into each setting to understand what it is that they should be looking for in the first place. So instead of going into a section and seeing an overview of all the possible things they could potentially need for their task, users would have to scroll below the fold, take a look at the sections, and even by looking at these descriptions, you would still need to click into it to see if it has the specific setting that you're looking for. So this causes users to have to do a lot of clicking throughout the settings and going back and forth into different locations before they find the setting that they need. So an action item for our user experience team is to evaluate the layout of our settings pages to understand how we can minimize the amount of clicks that it takes a user to access the setting that they actually need for the context of their work, and how we can surface the settings that are often hidden below the fold, depending on the size of the user screen. The naming of setting sections is also an area that causes problems. In a previous usability testing study, users didn't know whether they should look for merge request approvable settings in settings repository or going to settings general merge requests. The setting actually exists at settings general merge request approvals. But additionally, due to the layout of the page, the correct location wasn't always visible above the fold. And so users instinctively clicked into merge request or settings repository and then felt confused when they couldn't find the setting they needed. This also can affect other settings that are located under general, including things like the default issue template or service desk. Not seeing a heading that's related to issues or project management can cause users to do additional guesswork to find out where they need to go to complete that task. So this is an important area for improvement, and we have created a research issue to better understand how users expect settings to be categorized. And those key questions for us is where do users expect to find settings in the first place? Do they expect to find them within the sidebar or in other locations? And additionally, how they would categorize that information. So questioning whether our existing categories are sufficient or whether we need to expand or reduce the categories. The ability to search settings was also proposed by several users in the SUS survey and in a previous research study. Some users state that making settings searchable is more important to them than reorganizing the pages. The reasoning for this is that GitLab is a large product that caters to several different roles and workflows. This means that users often search through settings that are not relevant to their daily work and that they will never need to use. So if they were able to search the settings pages, then they might be able to more directly access the settings they need. We currently have an issue that is open related to settings, and this is an area that we should follow up on to discover whether it is feasible for our platform. So the next area to consider is how we determine where to place settings. So currently we primarily group settings into one consolidated area, such as project settings or group settings, or the profile settings or admin settings. But several users have expressed concern over the fact that they have to leave the context of their work to go change a preference or get a feature to start working. A clear example of this issue are the preferences in profile settings, in addition to other areas such as protected branches and merge request approvals. But let's take a look at the preferences area in the profile settings. So here in the preferences area, you can find lower on this menu areas where you're able to change the colors of your navigation theme, syntax highlighting theme. You can change the behavior of the system layout, so you can change the layout of your screen. You can change your default dashboard. So in that case, it's basically your home page. It's the information you see when you first land in GitLab. You're also able to change that in this area. And you could also change your project overview content. So there's many different things you can change in these preferences. However, you have to know that you're able to change them, and you have to be able to discover that. So a common trend I've seen from users is wondering whether they're able to turn off features in the left side navigation. So that's a common request we see in the System Usability Scale survey. And the reasoning behind that is when they come into GitLab and they look at the left side navigation, there can be an overwhelming amount of items in this sidebar, and you're not sure where you should get started. So oftentimes users ask, how can I turn off these features that are not relevant to my daily work? And there's actually a location in which they can make that change, but it lives within the visibility, project features, and permission setting. And you must expand it to find out that you're able to actually interact with these features and turn off things like issues, repositories, and various items in the left side navigation. This is an area that's particularly suffering from discoverability and important to consider in the context of improving the placement of settings. And we do have an open research issue that is all about this topic. And this research issue considers whether we should move settings into spaces where they are closer to the feature they're related to. And it also will tackle the question of whether we should have settings in duplicated places. So should they exist in the context of the workflow, but also in a dedicated area, or how we should handle this problem. Our UX design team is working on identifying top areas needing improvements for settings. This effort is being coordinated by Hayana Verissimo and Nadia Yudilova from the UX department. Settings is currently an area that is not owned, which has made it difficult to prioritize improvements related to this area in the past. So I think this is a great area where we can do a lot of discussion and cross-stage collaboration to improve the experience for users. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.